A week before my final thesis was due, my sister smiled sweetly, then smashed my laptop on the floor. "Your thesis? Who cares?" she sneered. The room went quiet until my mom laughed. "Oh, sweetie," she said, waving a hand like it was nothing. "You're too sensitive." My dad chuckled over his drink. Maybe she wasn't meant to graduate. That was dinner. That was family. And that laptop? It wasn't just metal and glass. It was months of research. Hours I worked 3 jobs to fund. It was my future. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stared at the broken screen and listened to the sound of my family laughing. They thought it was funny. They thought I'd do nothing. They had no idea what I would do next. My name is Aurora James. I was 24, a final-year grad student in cultural anthropology, and the first person in my family to ever pursue a master's degree. No one in my house celebrated that. While most of my classmates spent their breaks traveling or resting, I worked back-to-back shifts at the campus cafe and a local bookstore just to survive. Rent, groceries, textbooks, it all fell on me. I couldn't afford cloud backups. Every draft, every citation, every field note I'd gathered over the past year, very thing lived on that single, battered laptop. And yet, I was proud. Proud that I had made it that far. Proud that despite the noise at home, the endless criticism, and the silent wars at the dinner table, I'd carved out something of my own. My older sister, Camille, never forgave me for that. Camille was the golden one, charming, rebellious in a way that my parents found spirited. She had dropped out of college after 1 semester, but still lived like royalty in our home. New clothes, a car, vacations never earned, always given. Meanwhile, I washed dishes while reviewing ethnographic theory on my breaks. She made fun of me often, called me library mouse, professor wannabe, try hard. I ignored her. I had bigger things to worry about. Then came that dinner. I had just come home from a night shift, eyes bleary, fingers cramped from typing. I brought my laptop to the table with me, hoping to sneak in a few edits between bites. Camille narrowed her eyes the moment she saw it. "You bringing that thing to dinner now?" she scoffed. "I have to revise my abstract," I said quietly. "Submission is next week." She rolled her eyes. "God, you're so boring. Like anyone cares about your little cultural thesis." I didn't respond. And maybe that silence was my mistake. Because with one exaggerated laugh, Camille stood up, reached across the table, and before I could move, she grabbed the laptop. I froze. Then came the sound. Crack. Metal met tile. The screen shattered like glass. The keyboard popped free. The hard drive made a sickening clunk. Camille smirked. "Oops." For a second, no one moved. Then my mother chuckled. "Aurora, you need to toughen up. You're so dramatic." My father, still chewing his steak, raised an eyebrow. "Maybe this is a sign. Maybe you weren't meant to graduate." I stared at them. No one apologized. No one even looked sorry. And I realized this wasn't just a broken laptop. This was them breaking the only bridge I had left. I didn't say a word. Not when my mom laughed. Not when my dad made that offhanded joke. Not even when Camille winked and said, "Guess she'll finally stop acting like she's better than us." I just sat there, staring at the wreckage of my future on the floor. There was no scream, no dramatic meltdown, just silence. But inside me, something cracked just like the screen did, only it didn't stop at the edges. It ran straight through my spine. I excused myself quietly, carried the shattered pieces upstairs like I was burying a body, and shut the door behind me. That night, I lay awake on the mattress on my bedroom floor, staring at the ceiling while my family watched TV downstairs, laughing like nothing had happened. No one knocked on my door. No one asked if I was okay. No one mentioned the fact that my entire thesis months of fieldwork, interviews, analysis was gone. I opened my email on my phone, staring at the final submission deadline. 7 days, subject line, like it was a countdown to my own erasure. The pain wasn't just about the lost data. It was about how disposable I was to them. To Camille, I was a threat to her place as the center of attention. To my parents, I was the kid who made them feel inadequate, the reminder of what they didn't understand or care to value. Books, theories, academic babble, they never saw it as real work. I remembered my dad once telling a neighbor at a barbecue, "Aurora? She reads too much. We're just hoping she gets it out of her system soon." They didn't just laugh at my pain. They laughed because it was mine. That realization hit harder than any betrayal I'd felt before. I could have cried, but I didn't. Instead, I opened a drawer, pulled out an old flash drive, and began searching my memory, trying to recall what I'd saved, what I'd printed, what scraps I could salvage. I had 7 days. 7 days to not only rebuild my thesis, but to rewrite the story they'd assigned me. The fragile little girl who couldn't take a joke. The dramatic one. The too sensitive one. They thought I'd go quietly. They had no idea I was just getting started. By sunrise, I had a plan. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't foolproof, but it was mine. I dressed in the same jeans I'd worn all week, tied my curls back, and walked to campus before the library even opened. I waited on the stone steps, clutching a flash drive, a legal pad, and the last printed copy of my abstract, like they were sacred relics. The minute the doors unlocked, I slipped inside, grabbed a corner computer in the back row, and opened a blank document. Everything I had built was gone. But that didn't mean I couldn't start again. I emailed my thesis advisor and begged for a 1-week extension. I explained what happened without naming names. To his credit, he responded within the hour. "Aurora, I've seen your work ethic all semester. You've earned a little grace. New deadline. Next Friday. Keep me posted." I exhaled for the first time since the crash. Then I got to work. No distractions, no scrolling, no social media, just coffee, Google Docs, and sheer force of will. I recreated field notes from memory, re-downloaded academic articles through JSTOR, traced back interview summaries from email threads and voice memos I had saved on my old phone. When the library closed, I moved to the 24-hour student center. I typed through the night, nodding off on the keyboard and jerking awake with drool on my sleeve. By day 3, I could barely feel my fingers. By day 4, I started hallucinating my citations, but I didn't stop. Every time I thought about quitting, I remembered Camille's voice. "Your thesis? Who cares?" Every time my shoulders ached from hunching over the keyboard, I heard my mom's laughter, light and dismissive, as if my pain was a punchline. And when exhaustion nearly overtook me, I reminded myself why I began in the first place. This wasn't just a paper. It was proof. Proof that I had something to say. Proof that I mattered, even when they pretended I didn't. Proof that no one, not even my family, could erase me without a fight. Each page I recovered wasn't just research, it was a reclaiming of self. And somewhere between rebuilding my argument about cultural resilience and revising my methodology section, something in me hardened. Not cold. Not cruel. But clear. I would finish this thesis. And then, I would burn the illusion that they ever had power over me. By the 5th day, my thesis had shape again. Rough around the edges but alive. And while I kept writing by day, by night I started digging. Camille thought smashing my laptop was the end of the story, but she'd underestimated just how observant the boring academic in the house could be. I knew things. I'd seen things. Like the credit card she used without asking. The fake student ID she bragged about to her friends. The Amazon packages she signed under my name when my parents weren't home. At first, I thought it was petty. But then I remembered something my ethics professor once said. Injustice that goes unchecked becomes entitlement. And Camille was entitled in every sense. So I opened a new folder on my flash drive titled Camille Evidence. Receipts, photos, dates, screenshots of texts where she joked about scamming mom's card again, confirmation emails under my email address, even a voice memo where she laughed about blaming the neighbor kid for a cracked window. The deeper I went, the more I found. And then, something I hadn't expected. A link to an online writing marketplace. One of Camille's usernames popped up on a forum about reselling old essays. I clicked. She had submitted the same plagiarized essay 3 times to 3 different places, and one of them was to a local youth magazine under my name. I froze. I remembered the odd email I got weeks ago. "Hi Aurora, we loved your voice in this piece, would love to chat about edits." I had deleted it, thinking it was spam, but now it all made sense. She didn't just try to destroy my academic work. She was trying to be me when it was convenient. That was the moment everything sharpened. This wasn't just sabotage. It was identity theft. It was fraud. I looked at the clock. It was 1:12 a.m. The student legal clinic opened at 9. I stayed up the rest of the night compiling documents, organizing everything by category: academic fraud, financial misconduct, digital impersonation. I labeled it clearly, time-stamped it all. This wasn't revenge. This was self-defense. I had rebuilt my thesis from nothing. Now, I would make sure Camille faced what she'd tried to bury. And maybe, just maybe, I'd remind my parents that silence has consequences. Because if they wouldn't protect me, I'd protect myself. Properly. Legally. And irrevocably. Friday came. The final day. The deadline. The culmination of sleepless nights, muscle cramps, flash drive paranoia, and silent fury. At 8:47 a.m., I pressed submit on my final thesis. My hands trembled, not from doubt, but from sheer exhaustion. A wave of stillness washed over me. It was done. But I wasn't. Because that same morning, I marched into the student legal clinic with a folder in my arms and clarity in my heart. Inside that folder, evidence of Camille's use of my name in a fraudulent article, screenshots of her plagiarized essay trail, records of unauthorized purchases made on my parents' credit card, a forged application for a 2-0 student loan signed in my handwriting, but filed from her email. The legal assistant's eyes widened. "You've been busy." I smiled. She made it personal. I'm just responding professionally. By noon, the clinic submitted formal complaints to the youth magazine Camille defrauded, the university ethics board, the issuing bank that held the student credit line, and the digital marketplace where she resold stolen essays. I didn't feel guilty. I felt clean. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying guilt that didn't belong to me. At 2:15 p.m., I received confirmation from my advisor. "Got your thesis. Outstanding recovery. You should be proud, Aurora." At 2:42 p.m., I received another email from the magazine. "We're stunned to learn about this. Thank you for your transparency. We've escalated this." By 4:00 p.m., my phone lit up with a call from my dad. I didn't answer. I watched it ring out, then silenced it. Because this day didn't belong to him. Or to Camille. It belonged to Meath girl no one believed would make it, the daughter who sat through silence and smiled through neglect. And I wasn't done yet. I forwarded one final copy of the complaint to my parents' joint email. The subject line was simple. "Just so you're not caught off guard." The body? Just 2 lines. "This morning, I submitted my thesis. And this afternoon, your daughter Camille became the subject of 4 pending investigations. No threats, no drama, just facts. Because I wasn't seeking revenge anymore. I was restoring balance. And for once, I wasn't afraid of what came next. I welcomed it. They didn't come that night. But the next morning, they did. I was in the student center, curled up in a corner chair with my headphones on, when my phone buzzed nonstop. "Dad, 6:12 a.m. We need to talk." "Mom, 6:15 a.m. Aurora, please come home. We didn't know it was this serious." "Camille, 6:29 a.m. You are ruining my life, you crazy bee." I blocked her after that. By noon, I got an email from my mom's subject line. Family first. Aurora, this is tearing us apart. Camille made some mistakes, sure, but you've taken it too far. The school is threatening to suspend her. She's devastated. Please retract the complaints. Let us handle it privately. No more outsiders, please. I stared at the screen, emotionless. They weren't asking how I was doing. They weren't asking why Camille used my name. They weren't apologizing for laughing while she shattered my future. They just wanted to make it go away. At 5 p.m., my dad called again. This time, I picked up. His voice was clipped, performative, like he was trying to hold back anger while sounding rational. You've made your point, he said. We'll pay for a new laptop. Let's be done with this. I let the silence hang. Then I said calmly, You think this is about a laptop? He hesitated. Well, what else is there to talk about? I smiled tightly. There's the fact that she used my name to commit fraud. There's the fact that she resold stolen essays. There's the fact that you both watched her sabotage my future and laughed. Aurora, we're your family. And I am yours. I cut in, my voice low but clear. You just forgot that part. He exhaled heavily. The university's threatening expulsion. Her future could be over. My tone didn't change. So was mine. Remember? I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't ask them to understand. I just gave them the truth. I was no longer the girl begging to be heard. I was the woman who finally stopped protecting them. That night, I received another message, this time from Camille herself, through a burner email. Please, I messed up, I'll say sorry. Just don't let them expel me. But even in her apology, there was no accountability, just fear. Not regret. Self-preservation. I didn't respond. Instead, I logged out of everything. And for the first time in years, I felt untangled. No more emotional debt. No more shrinking to protect her feelings. No more performing for parents who only clapped for the wrong child. They wanted a bargain. But I had already made mine with myself. And I wasn't going back. 1 week after I submitted my thesis and 1 week after everything detonated, I got an email from the National Graduate Research Council. Subject: Congratulations, Aurora James, you've been selected. I read it twice. Then a third time. My thesis, the one I rebuilt from scraps and sleepless nights, had been chosen as a finalist for the Rising Scholar Award. The prize? A full ride to present at the annual conference in Chicago. Travel paid. Lodging covered. Exposure guaranteed. I stared at the screen, barely breathing. Me. The girl they called too sensitive. The daughter they dismissed. The sister they mocked. I didn't tell anyone. Not my family. Not even my closest classmates. I just packed my one pressed blazer, the only pair of heels I owned, and boarded the flight with my shoulders straight and my head high. Chicago was nothing like home. It was cold, clear, and humming with energy that didn't ask you to apologize for being ambitious. When I stood at that podium, surrounded by professors, researchers, and professionals who leaned in as I spoke, it hit me. I belonged here. Not because I was the smartest. Not because I was the loudest. But because I had fought for my voice and won. When the applause came, it didn't feel like noise. It felt like recognition. That night, in the hotel lobby, a woman approached me. She introduced herself as Olivia Grant, editor-in-chief of an up-and-coming investigative outlet. I heard about your thesis, but I also heard something else, she said, lowering her voice. There's been chatter about academic fraud linked to a student at your university. Your name came up not as a suspect, but as someone who stood up. I blinked. She smiled. I'd love to hear your side of the story. At first, I hesitated. I'd lived in silence for so long, I wasn't sure I could trust what speaking up might bring. But then I remembered something. Silence had protected them. Speaking would protect others. So I told her. Not with rage. Not with revenge. Just truth. How my sister smashed my laptop and smiled. How my parents laughed while my future cracked apart. How I rebuilt what they tried to destroy and refused to disappear. The article went live 5 days later. Scapegoat to scholar. One woman's fight against toxic silence. It went viral within hours. Professors I didn't know shared it. Former neighbors emailed. Even a high school teacher I barely remembered messaged me. We always knew you were the strong one. For the first time in my life, my story wasn't being erased. It was being seen. And that visibility wasn't a spotlight. It was a sunrise. 3 months later, I stood at the front gate of the newly acquired Rosewood estate, holding a clipboard and a keycard. The think tank I now worked for had purchased the historic property, once a private estate, now a converted innovation retreat for leadership workshops and cultural residencies. And funny enough, it used to be where my family hosted our annual Carter reunions. Every 4th of July, we'd gather on these lawns. Camille would pose in sundresses. Dad would grill like he was running a Food Network show. Mom would sip lemonade and gossip about whose child had amounted to nothing. That same gate now opened only with my approval. That same estate now had my name on the contact list. And that morning, my assistant forwarded a request. Hello, we'd like to book Rosewood for the Carter family reunion. Same time as every year. Hope the new management can accommodate. They didn't know. But I did. So I replied not as Aurora the daughter, or the sister, or the scapegoat. I replied as the gatekeeper. Thank you for your inquiry. As per new policy, bookings involving individuals with unresolved legal actions or a history of documented abuse will be declined. We wish you the best in finding an alternative venue. No rage, no theatrics. Just a gate, closed firmly, finally. But it wasn't quite over. 1 week later, as I prepared the property for our summer retreat, a familiar car pulled up. It was them. My parents stepped out slowly, like people approaching sacred ground they never thought they'd be shut out from. They didn't recognize me at first, not in the white linen suit, not with the program director by my side, not with confidence in my spine. But when they did, my mother's lips trembled. My father's face fell flat. Aurora, my mom said, stepping forward. We didn't know you. I raised one hand, calm, unshaking. You did, I said. You just didn't think I'd ever own anything you couldn't control. My dad swallowed hard. We didn't mean to hurt you. I tilted my head. Then why did you laugh when she did? They had no answer. Just hollow eyes, regret, or maybe just inconvenience. Mom tried again. Could we still use the grounds? Just this once? For family? I smiled. Soft. Controlled. Final. There's a lovely public park 2 towns over, I said. You'll find it less intimidating. I turned before they could speak again. Because I didn't need their guilt. I didn't need their praise. And I definitely didn't need to reopen doors they sealed shut years ago with laughter and silence. As I walked back toward the manor, keycard in hand, I heard nothing behind me. No footsteps. No pleading. Only the wind. And for the first time in my life, that silence, it didn't hurt. It healed. Because in the end, I wasn't the broken girl with a shattered laptop anymore. I was the woman holding the keystone, everything they thought I'd never have. And that was justice. Not loud. Not cruel. Just complete.